another episode of Well-Adjusted Mama. I'm your host, Dr. Laura Brayton, and today's guest is Dr. Vincent Pedre to speak on caring for the gut. Dr. Vincent Pedre is the medical director of Pedre Integrative Health and president of Dr. Pedre Wellness. He is a board-certified internist in private practice in New York City since 2004. His philosophy and practices are a blend of both Western and Eastern medical traditions. He is a clinical instructor of medicine at the Mount Sinai School of Medicine, as well as certified in yoga and medical acupuncture. His unique combination of medicine is best described as integrative or defined by a functional, systems-based approach to health. With his holistic understanding of both sides of the equation, he can help each patient choose the best course of action for their ailments to provide both immediate and long-term relief. His holistic approach incorporates positive, preventive health and wellness lifestyle choices. Dr. Pedre Wellness is a growing wellness platform offering health-enhancing programs along with informative social media and lifestyle products such as dietary supplements, books, and weight loss programs. For more information, please visit his website at pedremd.com, pedremd.com, and happygut.com. Welcome, Dr. Vincent Pedre, to the call. We're going to be speaking today on caring for the gut. Welcome.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Yes. So I'm so excited for the women in our podcast audience to learn more about the importance of gut health and how to achieve that, because so many people are living with digestive issues and not even necessarily aware that they're having an issue, or they are aware and they don't know where to turn for help. So I was hoping you could start off by just sharing a little bit about your personal story of why you chose to practice functional medicine and specialize specifically in healthy gut function.
Well, so for me, it started right before medical school, and I became very interested in what Dr. Deepak Chopra and Dr. Andrew Weil were writing about, and that got me interested in yoga and meditation and more of understanding kind of the mind-body connection.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know what it meant back then, but it was right before medical school that I started doing all this stuff, and I was, by the time I started medical school, I was already meditating on a regular basis. And then I went through, a regular Western medical school, and then came to New York and trained at Mount Sinai, which is a great program, evidence-based, but not integrated, not holistic, and I felt like I kind of lost my way from it. And as I was coming out of that, and I worked for a year, I had a sabbatical year, I decided to enroll in a yoga teacher training. And what that did for me is it just immersed me back into where I had started, which was great, because now I was a doctor. I knew how to practice medicine, but I wanted to go back and see, okay, how do I incorporate what I knew in my gut, no pun intended, was the way I wanted to practice medicine, what made the most sense. And so the yoga training brought me back to kind of looking at the body in a holistic fashion. And through there, I decided to pursue something that I could apply in the office. I wasn't going to do, I decided I became too busy in my medical practice, and I knew, okay, I'm not going to quit being a doctor and be a yoga teacher. Then I admire yoga teachers, so they do an amazing thing for people. But I wanted to figure out, well, what is kind of like yoga that I could bring into my practice? And that's when I started searching and coming upon acupuncture, and I decided to do a training in acupuncture. So I pursued that, and I say this because in the acupuncture training, I learned how in Chinese medicine, the body is looked upon as processes, and very different from Western medicine, where we're looking at the body as a series of symptoms that get classified into a diagnosis. And so it's almost like looking at a coin from both sides. One is looking at the root. The other one is kind of looking at the outside and just saying, this is what it is. The Chinese medicine approach is more kind of like what we've come to understand as systems biology. It's kind of the way I look at the body is almost like a symphony orchestra. And if your violins are out of tune, maybe your thyroid system, then it's going to throw everything else off. But if you go and you balance all the different body systems, and the body knows how to heal itself. Mm-hmm. And that's really the principle of functional medicine. So it was really through Chinese medicine that opened my eyes to looking at disease and disease processes from underlying root causes that then got me interested in functional medicine. So in 2006, I finally went to my first functional medicine conference, and I felt like I was home. It was the first time that I met other doctors that were doing what I wanted to do and just were really nice people. It's just the energy of the Institute of Functional Medicine was just so welcoming. And that got me started on that trajectory. Now, the other story that was happening in the background that had become so much a part of me that I think I didn't even realize it for a while, it was my normal, was that I grew up with IBS. And I had it throughout my life. And over the years, slowly, by changing little things in my diet, I had made it better. But I still didn't completely understand that even if it was twice a week exposure to a certain type of food, that it was still causing problems with my stomach and my irritable bowel. And it wasn't until I did functional medicine and started studying that and then getting into, all the coursework there that I started realizing and thinking about my gut and thinking, well, I need to change some things. And I started experimenting, and I was able to fix my IBS. And that was really elucidating because yet, it's another field in medicine where Western medicine calls it IBS. That's a giant umbrella term that could mean multiple different types of root causes.
Yeah.
And not the best medications to treat it. There's
right.
there's no real, and I think it's because it's the wrong idea. It's looking at something as a single cause, single solution, but the gut is such a complex system that it needs multiple solutions working simultaneously. And so I healed my own gut, and I started working with patients on their guts. And, well, before I knew it, I was getting referred another patient from a patient I had worked on and made their gut better. And then their friends referred friends, and just keep spreading to the point where I realized that I was becoming a gut expert. And suddenly this was a subspecialty in my practice of general internal medicine. Mm-hmm. And so it almost happened by accident, and it's kind of interesting that it was my own story growing up and my struggles with eating and not knowing what was the right thing to eat, and also as a child getting sick over and over. Like I would get bronchitis or sinusitis like 4 times a year, and I was on antibiotics all the time, and the doctors just kept throwing antibiotics at me. And no one realized or even thought that it was my diet. And if I could change my diet, then I would boost my immune system and I would not get sick as often. So that was the path that got me to functional medicine and seeing what amazing results you can do for people, because the gut, as I call it, is the seat of all health. If you can fix somebody's gut, you can fix a lot of other things. that are going on in the body. If you clean up their diet, then you can help them overcome asthma, allergies, pain, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. So it's all tied into, you cannot separate it from the diet and how the gut is functioning. So it's kind of like the foundation for almost anything that you do with a person, with a patient.
That's right. I mean, you mentioned the immune system connection as well, and we also can call the gut the second brain, so how it's, producing neurotransmitters and impacting brain function. It's like so, eliminating toxins, absorbing nutrients. It's so important that it's working, normally.
Yeah, and it's so connected to, we think of it from how it's connected to food, but it's also connected to the mind. And as you said, the second brain, but it's also affected by your state of mind and the amount of stress that you hold. And a lot of people will pocket their stress in their guts. It could be in the upper abdomen, and you're getting a lot of indigestion, reflux, or it could be lower, and that becomes more bloating and could be diarrhea, alternating with constipation, gassiness. So it can manifest in different ways. And the way I see it is that you have to address all of these aspects, because you could make somebody's diet perfect, but if you're not dealing with their lifestyle and with the way that they react to stress in their life or even their self-care, then you're missing part of the picture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. Wow, that's a great story. So, I mean, it really speaks how, and I hear this so much from other functional medicine doctors, how they had issues growing up and they were just on a mission to heal themselves or heal a family member, and that's what, brought them to looking for the root cause, which is what functional medicine is doing. So it sounds like out of your own experience, you created this program in your office, the Gut Care Program, and I know you have a book that's coming out, too, at the end of the year called Happy Gut. Can you tell us a little bit about your program?
Yes. So the Gut Care Program, which is a great acronym because it both means caring for your gut, but each letter of the acronym stands for a different part in the process of caring, and the C is for cleanse, the A is for activate, the R is for restore, and the E is for enhance. And I go into it in a lot of detail in the book, but just as an overview, cleanse basically means going in and taking out foods that are causing immune reactions, fixing a dysbiosis in the gut, which means an imbalance between good and bad organisms, which could be bacteria, yeast, and parasites. But I even think of cleanse in a more expanded sense, like even the cookware that we use, because there's a lot of toxins in a lot of these non-stick surfaces, and also the water that we drink. So you're kind of really thinking about cleansing in all aspects of life. The activate is really about going in and figuring out what is missing. Could it be digestive enzymes, bile acids, stomach acid, and replacing those necessary enzymes to help digest food better and also absorb nutrients better. But at the same time, so a lot of the people that I work with have disordered guts, or the gut is in the background of some other issue they're having. So putting them on enzymes gives them their gut lining a bit of a rest so that it can recover. Then the next phase is called restore, and that's basically restoring the healthy gut flora, and that can be through probiotics and also through prebiotics. So prebiotics are short-chain carbohydrates that help feed the good bacteria. So they're food for the probiotics. And then probiotics, you can take as a supplement. And there's a lot of companies out there on the market. I've created a particular line for Happy Gut that will be available soon. And then Enhance is basically just fixing the gut lining. So using nutrients that are anti-inflammatory or help heal the lining of the gut, like L-glutamine, maybe omega-3s, zinc, aloe, DGL. So all these things are part of the program, and obviously I go into much more detail in the book. The book is really a guide to healing the body by healing the gut. So even though it's about the gut, it's really about total body wellness. And it addresses a lot of conditions that, I think generally people don't realize are connected to the gut, like fibromyalgia, chronic pain, migraines, allergies, asthma, even autoimmune disease, all of that. The foundation is to go in and fix the gut. And I do have in my book, which is quite comprehensive, also I worked with 2 yoga teachers to develop yoga poses for gut health. So we designed a 7-day program, which is 1 pose for each day of the week. So that was really exciting, but they also helped me with meditations and different types of breathing exercises that we have in the book to help with relaxation or improve digestion or poses for constipation. So, and that was nice for me to bring in because of my background in yoga. I wanted that to be part of the book. And then, of course, we have a whole meal plan that I created with 2 chefs. One created smoothies to go for breakfast, so very energy-packed, high-nutrient smoothies that kind of power your day, and it's the way I begin my day most days, just because I'm in a rush to get out in the morning. So the easiest thing for me to do is to blend a whole bunch of nutrients in the Vitamix. Usually I use a protein powder. I've developed 2 protein powders for Happy Gut. One is for the cleanse and one is for maintenance. But then to that I'll add blueberries, raspberries, spinach, whatever I'm kind of like in the mood for to make, each morning the shake is a little bit different. Mm-hmm. And then there's a whole bunch of recipes that go with the Happy Gut diet. And they're all gut-friendly recipes. We've actually tested a couple of them. I had a dinner party over the winter and invited some friends over, and we cooked some of the Happy Gut recipes with a friend who's a chef, and had really great feedback. Everybody was quite happy. And no stomach aches and no bloating. It was nice.
Yeah, that's so cool. And they also probably thought it tasted great too.
Yeah. And then as part of Happy Gut, I really wanted not just to give people a program, so there's a 28-day program, but I also wanted to help people that even if they do the program, but they might still have some underlying issues. I created a guide to all the different types of functional medicine type tests that we do to look at underlying causes. To leaders work with their doctors on, finding their root causes so they can become the healthiest that they can be. And of course, we talk about
those.
What's that?
I was wondering if you could expand a little bit on those types of tests.
Yeah, so they can be like specialty lab stool testing, food sensitivity testing, So there's different labs that I recommend for that, and I include a whole resources section with labs that do a lot of these really more advanced functional tests that we use in functional medicine. And I really wanted to include that because I just feel like a lot of the books out there don't have that information for people, and I wanted to arm people with the tools so that they could continue their healing journey even after they do the Happy Gut diet and do the 28-day program. So, because sometimes you might not realize that you're reacting to a certain food, but there's certain lab tests that you can do that can help pick up those reactions. And I'll have an example. I had a patient do one of those tests, and he has ulcerative colitis. And we had done everything to fix that and put him on all the, the C.A.R.E program protocol. But he was still having some minor issues. And when we found through the blood testing that he was eating some foods that he had reactions to, so he took those out. And after 2 months, he was due for his routine colonoscopy, and it's for people who are listening that don't know what ulcerative colitis is. It's an inflammatory disorder of the colon that often results in lots of loose stools, mucousy stools, and sometimes blood in the stool because the colon itself becomes so inflamed that it bleeds. And so we had done the whole C.A.R.E program with him and added the food sensitivity plan as well. And he had his first completely clean colonoscopy. There's no disease.
Wow. So his body completely healed itself and he no longer has ulcerative colitis.
Yeah. Well, let's clarify. So because ulcerative colitis is an autoimmune disorder. So he will still have the tendency to have ulcerative colitis, and he has to continue on a gut maintenance plan probably for the rest of his life. If he thought he was fine and started eating all the bad things that he shouldn't eat, it's very likely that he could provoke and, cause the illness to come back. So, so the autoimmune disease is, those illnesses are things that you live with and you can manage, and you can basically keep it at check by your lifestyle and eating choices, depending on the intensity and how advanced you were in the disease. Some people, if it's very early on, and I catch people in the early stages, like thyroid dysfunction, Hashimoto's, which is autoimmune thyroiditis. And if you start working on their gut and fix their diet, a lot of times you can stave off the advancement into, thyroid dysfunction where your thyroid just does not produce enough hormone anymore, and then you become hypothyroid. So that's just another example. So another body system that's still connected to the gut.
Right, and so this is just so, it's just so exciting, I think, when I, want to share with people that if you have an autoimmune disorder, this is not something that you have to live with and suffer with, so to speak, the rest of your life. It requires lifestyle changes, which it can be work, but it's worth it because you're going to be able to heal your body and be vibrant. Last week I saw the movie Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. Have you seen that?
Yes. Yeah, I did.
Great movie, right?
Really? Excellent. I think it's eye-opening, right?
Yes, it's totally eye-opening. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I watched it on Amazon for free. And, it's an Australian man, completely obese, horrible lifestyle, and he had developed an autoimmune disorder because of that lifestyle. And by doing I think it was a 60-day juice cleanse, he was able to not only lose weight and feel better physically from the weight loss, but his autoimmune disorder completely went into remission because his gut wasn't inflamed anymore. Do you want to speak a little bit more about juicing? Is that something that's in your book as well?
I don't go into juicing in my book, but I think that juicing is a really good way to reset the body. In my book, I'm more about blending. So like the morning smoothie is really a blended smoothie. So you're getting all of the getting everything that's part of whatever you're adding, whether it's spinach or Swiss chard. But for some people, sometimes, a 3-day juice fast is really good to kind of reset the gut function. And again, it depends on what is going on underneath, because you have to be careful with juicing depending on what you choose to juice. There could be a lot of sugar in it. And if you have an underlying yeast disorder, you could actually make it worse if you have a yeast imbalance. And that would be, women who get frequent yeast infections, or a lot of gas, bloating after eating sweets, desserts, things like that. Another sign of yeast overgrowth is if you wake up in the morning and you have kind of like this white coating on your tongue, thickish white coating. So these are all signs of yeast overgrowth. So you have to be careful if you have that, not to go, because juicing could either be low sugar, but it can also be high sugar depending on what you put. And if you fruit in there, depending on the fruit choice, or beets, so you may be adding too much sugar. But if you're juicing greens and lemon and ginger and cilantro, that can be so cleansing for the body. And I'll do that maybe once or twice a year, where I'll do a couple of day juice cleanse. I try not to do it for too many days because I'm already quite thin as it is, and I don't want to lose too much weight. And there are people who do juicing for more extended periods. The one thing about that is you have to be careful. You have to get protein in there somehow, because your liver really depends on certain amino acids for detoxification. So if you're juicing just vegetables but not getting protein, after a couple of days, your body's detox mechanisms are going to start to slow down, especially in the liver, and then you can start to build up toxins. So you kind of need a balance of both, whether it's juicing with a hypoallergenic protein powder to supplement, or getting in some nut milks or other, sources of protein as well. So it's definitely something that I think has to be done under some sort of guidance. The 30-day juice cleanse was quite amazing. I mean, it just shows how the body can heal itself, what he did and reversed his autoimmune disease. It says something about, what do we understand about the body? And it's what I talked about at the beginning, which is the way I see the body. It's a symphony orchestra. And if things go out of tune, that's when you have disease. But the way you can restore the body is just finding out, okay, which instruments are either out of tune or not working right, and then put them back in order, and then the body knows how to heal itself.
Yeah.
Right. He didn't take medicine for his autoimmune disease, or his medicine was the food, the vegetables, the phytonutrients, the B vitamins, the beta carotene. So it was really all of that, plus taking away the incredible work that it takes to digest food from the gut. And that's what helped heal his body.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a great story. So for a lot, we mentioned a little bit about yeast overgrowth and potentially, we didn't really get into it, but parasites or, the bad bacteria, like a small intestine bacterial overgrowth. What can you speak to our audience about what may cause that to happen in the first place? Like what causes the yeast and the parasites and things to become imbalanced in their gut? And, how is that going to then impact health and function? Like we mentioned bloating and digestive symptoms, but what about beyond that? How can these overgrowths impact someone's health?
Well, probably the most striking example, and I can use the example of a recent patient with bacterial overgrowth. Mm-hmm. So it's basically bacterial overgrowth in the small bowel is too much bacteria in the small intestine, which has a much lower load of bacteria than the large intestine is where the majority of the bacteria in the gut live. Mm-hmm. So bacterial overgrowth in the small bowel could be either that there's been overproliferation, so too many of the bacteria, could be even good bacteria in the small bowel, they just overpopulated it, or it could be good bacteria that belong in the colon that have migrated into the small intestine, and now they're causing overpopulation just by being in the wrong place. Mm. So, but what happens with this overpopulation of bacteria is that they consume more nutrients, and then they will rob the body of nutrients that you would want to absorb, so like B12, minerals, and then that can lead to just a general sense of malaise and fatigue, along with the bloating that you get from the bacterial overgrowth that can make you feel really lousy. Mm-hmm. So I had this patient who came in, and she had a combination, a lot of different symptoms, but behind them there was this bloating, like this horrible bloating that had been going on for a number of years. And she just didn't feel herself, and she just hadn't felt herself in years. Like, she couldn't go out with her friends because she just was too tired after work. She had no energy. And, we did comprehensive blood work to look at typical things like thyroid. We were going to check her adrenals, but we ended up not checking her adrenals because we found the underlying cause. We did a breath test, and she had bacterial overgrowth. So I treated her for that, and I put her on a whole gut regimen. And within 2 weeks of the treatment, she came back and said, "I am my old self for the first time in 6 years."
Yay.
Yeah, and
so cool.
I mean, that was just remarkable because, that's probably one of the quickest turnarounds I've ever seen for a patient who came in feeling lousy, and when they came back after treatment, they were like, their face was shining, and they're like, "I feel great." And along with it, we had worked on the diet, and there's a specific diet that you have to follow, low sugar, low FODMAP for someone who has bacterial overgrowth. So the treatment is, even though it can have a pretty rapid effect, to fully treat bacterial overgrowth, you have to treat for 2 or 3 months. Mm-hmm. And depends on what the underlying cause is. But she was a pretty remarkable transformation. But to go back to, the underlying reasons, why do we get a dysbiosis, or why do we get a yeast overgrowth? Probably number one is the overuse of antibiotics.
Yes.
The antibiotics are just overprescribed and overused, probably for infections that are viral and would not have needed antibiotics anyway. Now, there are definitely cases, antibiotics are life-saving, so I'm not anti-antibiotic. I'm just anti the overuse of antibiotics.
Right.
So a lot of times I'm educating my patients and having to convince them that, their cold is viral, and the idea of giving them an antibiotic to knock it out is really not going to make a difference. It's their body that's going to knock it out, and really what we have to look at is supporting the immune system. Mm-hmm. The other way around. So that's number one. Probably I would say number two would be stress. So stress can alter the bacterial flora, mm-hmm. And can cause a dysbiosis. But even other things like alcohol, like drinking, probably the diet plays a major role. So if your diet is skewed and all you eat is refined carbs and you eat a lot of sugar, then you're going to breed these types of organisms in your gut. You're just going to favor them because that's what you're feeding yourself. So that's also a major influence on what's making up the gut flora, is by the way that people are eating. That's why the diet is such an important part of the programs that I put people on, and of the program in Happy Gut. The diet is pivotal to fixing the gut. So did I answer all your questions there?
Yeah, and there was a couple other that came up for me. We mentioned antibiotics for people taking them themselves, but what about antibiotics in meat? Like if someone's eating non-organic meat, those animals unfortunately have been exposed to tons of antibiotics, so that can also impact someone's gut function, right?
Yeah, well, it'll impact the gut flora. The other thing that I was researching over the summer was the glyphosate pesticide that's used as part of Roundup, that's used for all the GMO, the Roundup-ready corn and soy, and it's the growing list of GMO crop. So the glyphosate is a chelating agent, so it binds minerals, so it can cause mineral malabsorption, but it's also actually registered or patented as an antibiotic. So it actually does have antimicrobial properties. And then thirdly, it's been found to poke holes in the lining of the intestines, so it can contribute to leaky gut. Wow. So, and then just think about how much pesticide are we exposed to through our food. Or if we don't know if something is not labeled GMO, so you don't know whether something is GMO, or it might have pesticide residues on it. And all that, I'm sure, affects the gut flora, along with all the environmental toxins that we are exposed to. And then even
birth control pill, that also can impact, right, yeast overgrowth?
Yes. Yeah. So that can lead to yeast overgrowth as well. Yeah. Yeah. It's usually impacted. It's never one thing. It's
right.
It's a combination of things. So it may be a woman on birth control pill who also likes to eat cookies, or has little kids, and their kids eat sweets, and they just, they're in the house. So it just makes it the greater likelihood that they're going to have some if their children are having some.
Right. Yeah, there's just so much there. And so what could you recommend to the women listening if they want to, start making some lifestyle changes to improve their gut? What can they do now?
Well, one of the most impactful things that you can do is to really cut down on sugar, and it's not just for the gut, it's for your entire body. Because sugar is inflammatory, and it's cancer promoting, and along with leading to metabolic syndrome. Too much sugar over a lifetime can, lead to metabolic syndrome that then can turn into diabetes eventually, and then that leads to heart disease and kidney disease and a whole slew of other health conditions. So sugar is a big one, because I think we consume way too much sugar as a society in whole. And secondly would be to get rid of grains, especially like wheat, gluten. That tends to cause a lot of GI upset for people. And even today I was talking to a patient who took out gluten because he had a family member that was diagnosed with celiac, even though he didn't have any gut issues. But he was having some mental fogginess, just not feeling quite as sharp. And, his own observation, and I've seen this over and over with patients, is after he took out gluten, he felt much more mentally sharp. And I know that, new mothers, it takes a lot of energy, caring for the little one. Takes a lot out of you. So on top of that, if you're tired and you're dealing with fatigue, you can't be your best self for your kids. So taking gluten out can really improve mental clarity. It takes away the effect that gluten has on the mood. Same thing with sugar. Sugar can cause mood swings, so you might not feel as patient with your children. Mm-hmm. And the other one that, is top on the list that can cause a lot of gut issues for people is dairy, especially non-organic dairy or non-cultured dairy. Mm-hmm. I'm not completely against dairy. I do take dairy out as part of the Happy Gut diet because it's just part of the gut healing, but I think eventually it's good to bring in yogurt or kefir. You always, again, have to pay attention if you're buying products out at the supermarket that they are not high in sugar, because all of these things have added sugar. I'm always shocked. Like when I walk down the supermarket aisle looking at the yogurts and seeing 20-some grams of sugar, 30 grams of sugar, and how can, that's way too much sugar for one serving.
Yeah, and maybe even we didn't talk about fermented foods. Is that also part of your book?
I don't get heavily into that. I think I didn't have enough space for fermented foods. I do talk about them as good sources of favorable bacteria, but I think that could be a follow-up book after Happy Gut.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, fermented vegetables, kimchi, sauerkraut, all that can be helpful for gut health, but it can also be problematic for people who have yeast overgrowth. So you kind of have to watch when is it that you bring it in, and have to make sure that yeast is in balance and you've got, you're ready on a supportive regimen for good bacteria through cultured foods or probiotics, prebiotics. But yeah, I mean, I think that fermented foods are great. And there's reason that these foods were developed, over generations, decades ago, and they were considered part of a health diet. And I think our forefathers knew the importance of a healthy gut. Yeah. And then we lost it somewhere along the way, but now we're going to get it back.
Yeah, I mean, it's just vital. I mean, when we see the obesity, just skyrocketing in the United States for children and adults, and all of the health issues associated with that you already mentioned, like diabetes and heart disease, this is just not a way to live, right? This is no way to be optimally alive when you're obese, carrying around weight, feeling, foggy and sick and fatigued.
Yeah, and I think people have to decide, and see what is your pain point. What level of suffering are you willing to tolerate, because of your addiction to, say, sugar? Mm-hmm. And at some point, I think the people who get off of that and get on a good diet and don't go back is because they realize they don't want to feel that way anymore. They want to feel good every day.
Right.
And that was my motivation when I started fixing my gut, is that I first realized, wow, I'm living with this. It's become my normal, but this is not the way I want to live. And then I chose, okay, I'm going to change my diet. I'm going to start experimenting on myself, because I know that if I can figure this out for myself, then I can figure it out for my patients. Mm-hmm. And then once you tune into how great you feel, if you're not eating certain foods, if you're managing your lifestyle in a certain way, then what felt like a big effort in the beginning actually just becomes a part of your life. And then it just feels so much better to feel good, then why would you ever go back?
That's right. You don't miss the sugar. You don't miss the processed foods. It's like your body's craving green vegetables and
but you have to you have to decide what's your priority. You have to decide what is the type of life that you want. Do you want to continue having your cookies or your donuts and feeling horrible after it, but, feeling great for the moment that you eat it, but then feeling horrible and having your mood down and depressed? And do you want to continue doing that, or do you want your life to be about feeling good? And I think it's a choice. And when people realize, what a powerful choice it is and that you're in control of that choice, then I think that's when they really make the change.
Yeah, it has to come from within. You're right. Like, people can, your doctor can tell you what to do, but only you can actually make the changes necessary to heal yourself. And, for our audiences, of new moms, this is just, I think I've actually seen that a lot, where women will, do whatever it takes to heal themselves because they are so motivated by, being the best mom for their child. So there's, something bigger there that is pushing them to do the self-care that's necessary.
Yeah, and that involves a lot of balancing and juggling. And, sometimes for new moms, like, I've actually prescribed for them mandatory self-nurturing time. I think there's also sometimes a lot of guilt about not being with their kids at every moment that they can. But what they have to realize is you also have to do some self-care, because then you can be the best you to your children. So sometimes my prescription is tell your husband that Dr. Pedre says he has to watch the kids for an hour or 2 or 3, whatever it is on the weekend, that you get to go do whatever it is that nurtures you.
Yeah.
Then you can be your best self for everyone.
Yeah. I think that's so huge. Mama self-care is just absolutely vital. And, moms are just caretakers of the family. And so sometimes their health can be neglected and they come last. And so I'm hoping that the message that we're really trying to get across is, you as a mom, your health is number one priority.
Yeah, and what I think of, something that I kind of realized recently is, because there's always this guilt about if I'm taking care of myself, I'm being selfish, I'm not taking care of the kids or my husband. But really, caring for yourself is caring for everybody else. Because when you care for yourself, then it's going to just have a ripple effect. So even if you're living with your family and everybody's not eating so great, and you change the way that you do things, little by little they're going to want to change because they're going to see the changes in you.
That's right. Any last thoughts you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, I think we covered a lot of really excellent points. I hope that they will search out and find a functional medicine practitioner and really look at how their guts might be playing into the way that they feel in other aspects of their lives. And, of course, I would like them to stay tuned and get my book when it's out at the very end of the year. It's on sale December 29th, 2015, Happy Gut. And I look forward to...
You want to share?
Yeah, my website is happygutlife.com.
Okay.
And it's under construction right now. There's going to be much more to come. But there's a splash page, and people can go on there and join my mailing list to stay connected.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Oh, I'm so excited. I can't wait to read your book.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thanks again for coming on the show today.